In order to properly review the Harley-Davidson Lowrider S, I would need to compare it to other big cruisers. But I can't do that because I don't really ride other big cruisers. I would also need to compare it to other Harley-Davidsons, but I can't really do that either because this is the only Harley I've ever ridden. So rather than reviewing this bike, I'm simply going to be experiencing it. And you get to experience it along with me. In fact, I'm just gonna pretend that I've never even heard of Harley-Davidson. They must be new. The first thing I noticed when getting on the Lowrider S was, of course, its size and weight. You heave it off of its side stand, and the foot pegs might as well be a mile away. The moment I fired it up, however, I noticed the size of its personality. This bike is alive, and it has a lot to say about it. It shakes at idle, the motor pounding away with a canter that's just imperfect enough that it feels organic. That weight disappears the moment this V-twin flexes its muscle just a little bit. The Lowrider S doesn't make you feel so much like you're one with the bike, more like you're taming the bike, but barely. It is awesome. Now, the motor that Harley-Davidson put in this bike, I am not going to remember that, is called the Milwaukee 8. It's a V-twin with a displacement of 114. That's cubic inches, not cc's. In metric, that equates to a little over 1,800 cubic centimeters, which, as you may expect, results in quite a bit of torque. 119 foot-pounds of it, to be precise, which, combined with this bike's wet weight of a little under 700 pounds, actually gives it the same torque-to-weight ratio as my Triumph Speed Twin. And just like my Speed Twin, this thing pulls. It's not a top-end bike, nor is it meant to be. This motor is meant to go fast in short bursts and sound amazing doing it. So you may be wondering how I managed to go 7 years as a motorcyclist in America without gaining any real experience with cruisers of any brand. And the reason for that is that cruisers, generally speaking, are optimized for the type of riding that I enjoy the least. Which is, of course, this, freeway riding. It's the least interesting road to look at. It is the most annoying type of road to have to stay safe from other cars on. And because there's not really any turning, that means there's not really any leaning. And leaning is one of the most essential differences between driving a car and riding a motorcycle. That does feel pretty good. This is a special noise, there's no doubt about it, especially with this S&S pipe on here. I can hear the noise bouncing back at me off of trucks and even other cars as small as SUVs. I mean, you twist that throttle, you feel the noise in your entire body. Just the feedback that this bike gives you. It's not even all that fast, but to be honest, I think that's an asset. It just starts to run out of go right as I'm approaching speeds that I'd be uncomfortable going in these circumstances. This bike has 6 gears, but I haven't shifted into 6th yet because I just don't want to stop hearing this noise. Alright, there we go, 6th gear. Now, I'm going to try something that I have never done before on any motorcycle. I'm going to use highway pegs. Right foot, left foot, and that's it. Okay. I guess this kind of makes sense. It would offer a little bit of relief if I had been riding for a long time. I don't think I'm going to miss it when I'm done here today, but I get why people like it. To be honest, when I'm riding for a long time, my knees are not my weakest link in terms of comfort. That would be my butt. Don't you... Oh, and see, now that I need to downshift, I have to take my feet off the pegs again. That does not get old. This motor is just endless entertainment. The jury's still out on comfort, but at the very least, I have never been less bored on the highway. Brakes are fine. It's a dual disc in front, but stopping 700 pounds in a hurry is asking kind of a lot. I also don't love how the turn signals work. They are self-canceling, which is nice, but they're mounted on separate handlebars, so it's not the traditional, side-to-side switch here on the left. It's one button, one toggle button for the left turn signal on the left handlebar, and the same thing for the right turn signal on the right handlebar. I don't know if all David Harleysons are like this, but I find that I am almost always using my left signal properly and almost always neglecting to use my right turn signal. So now we are going to see how this Lowrider S fares at my favorite type of riding, which is taking curvy roads at a somewhat spirited pace. I do emphasize the word somewhat in that sentence. If you've seen my videos before, you know that I'm not really an aggressive sport rider. And I have wondered at times if my riding style is something that I could enjoy just as easily on a cruiser as I do on my Speed Twin or on other bikes similar to it. I've wondered if maybe that power, that braking power, that cornering clearance is more than I actually need. This bike does have cast wheels, inverted forks, and a rear monoshock. All little touches that show that Harry Donaldson does want you to actually have some fun on this bike. So this isn't a very high-speed road, but it does have some tight corners. And I will say, this doesn't feel like 700 pounds. The steering is remarkably light. Here comes my favorite big sweeper in this area. Oh my, there's a foot peg. Alright, so it didn't take much for me to drag a foot peg going around that bend. I don't think that's a knock against the Lowrider S. That's probably typical for the class. To be honest, that was just a little personal validation for me. That just kind of confirmed that my riding style is best suited to the types of bikes I actually ride the most. we're here, we might as well talk about riding the Lowrider S in the city, which is neither my favorite nor my least favorite place to ride. As an urban rider, one will spend a lot of time sitting still at red lights like this one, and this is when I really appreciate this low seat height. Even though this is a big, heavy bike, I feel totally solid and planted. This is also where I appreciate having an extremely torquey motor. I mean, you pretty much only need to let the clutch out and the bike will get you up to about 10 miles an hour or so. This is not a top-end power bike, but the city is where top-end power matters the least. Sitting at another red light, I do kind of like the way this thing shakes. That V-twin motor just kind of burbling in your lap. Now, one thing I would not want to do with this motorcycle is filter. I just feel like trying to slip something this big and heavy in between two cars is a little bit more of a risk than I'm willing to take. Everybody around you knows you're here, though, that's for sure. Now, with its large size and the naturally poorer economy of a huge engine, this would not be my... Okay, dude. This would not be my first pick for a dedicated city motorcycle. But if it was going to be my one motorcycle, kind of an all-rounder, and that was going to include some occasional city riding, well, life wouldn't be all that difficult.
I gotta tell you, these Herbie Dickinson folks are onto something. Every motorcycle out there has something unique to offer, but the experience here is totally different from anything else I've ever ridden. The Lowrider S is pure rock and roll. I swear, if I keep thinking about this thing, I'm gonna find myself shopping for one. I wonder how much they... Oh my. I know made in America isn't cheap, but damn. I guess Horton Danielson figures that if they offer a one-of-a-kind experience, someone out there will pay any price for it. A ballsy move for a brand new company. I hope a few people do buy these bikes, though, because I'd really like to see this company get a chance to try their hand at some other types of motorcycles in the future, like, say, a Street Fighter. I want to thank you guys for coming along on this ride with me today, and I especially want to thank the owner of this motorcycle, Volts. This is actually not the first of his bikes you've seen on this channel. A lot of you watched my video about the Thruxton R at the beginning of 2021. That was his bike as well. If you enjoy looking at pictures of cool motorcycles in front of interesting backdrops, go ahead and follow him on Instagram. I'll put a link in the description below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for being part of the Van Fam. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Until next time, you guys ride safe, and remember, motorcycles are for everyone.